Hi, welcome to TTOG. We're your hosts, Sarah and Annmarie. This podcast is not a replacement for therapy. We are therapists. However, we are not providing free therapy. Welcome back to TTOG. I'm your host, Annmarie.
I'm Sarah.
And on today's episode, we're going to talk all about anxiety. So I hope you buckle up.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one.
All the anxiety things.
All the anxiety things. Personal to us. And maybe personal to you.
Yeah. So
Where do we begin, though?
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's such a broad topic.
Yeah. And I think it's broad and it's so, I guess, relevant to the world.
Right.
And where it is right now and how we define it.
Right, because mental health wasn't always what it is now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a tad bit older than Sarah. Just a little, right? Mm-hmm. And when I was growing up, or even over the years when I was in grad school, I guess it was just more prevalent of like, maybe that was anxiety that I was feeling when I was in high school or before then. But up until then, it really wasn't a thing.
No. Even when I was in like younger grades, I guess elementary school, nobody knew what was really going on. Like I think I started in my personal experience, I started struggling with anxiety probably when I was in 6, 7, 8.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't know it was anxiety though. Like I wasn't sure what it was. I think I started with a little bit of social anxiety and then I just thought it was like nerves.
Yeah. And I mean, that's even prevalent now because how you really supposed to know what it is, right? Because there's so much gray area between what anxiety definition of DSM to overwhelm or stress.
And again, nobody would really know, I guess, DSM besides for us, you know?
Right.
So for everybody else, I guess it's just...
This is how they define it in their own perception, in their own lens.
But
this is how they define it.
Because I guess anxiety I was always taught to call the anxiety and not my anxiety, which has helped me, honestly, because why do you want to define something that can be so... I don't want to say bad because there's also a little bit of good anxiety, which we'll get to, I guess. But you never want to label something, just like we don't want to be labeled as just one thing. I don't want to label it as like a crutch or like my thing.
And I think it is controversial too, because sometimes, you know, anxiety really is something that's deep rooted in people. So what works for you and what works for other people, right? I think I'm definitely on the same path of I'm not going to label it as this is something that I'm gonna hold.
Right. It also
all
helps
the time
too. I feel like once you label it as something different or and not so specific to you, it's easier to manage and deal with because you're finally looking at it through a different lens, and there's multiple lenses you can look through for anxiety. I feel like you can go down the rabbit hole, you can go down the wonderland. Like there's just so many different avenues, I guess.
Right.
You can look at it.
And to be a little bit of therapist-y, it's like I call
Can't
it
help herself.
I know, I really can't.
No,
I did it last episode too.
Who
it's
cares?
bad, right? I call it anxiety land, right? Like we get into anxiety land, and that's where we stay because our emotions take control, right? They take the steering wheel and they just say, "See you later," rational thought.
Right, which is super fun to me because when I first heard her say that, I was a kid. Now, to be honest, kids nowadays probably have no fucking idea what Candyland is. But I always envisioned it as anxiety land is you're literally in that one island of constant anxiety. And in the candy, like I always looked at it as the candy and in Candyland, it's really sad, gloomy
Yeah.
objects in anxiety land. And that's always how I envisioned it. And it helped me kind of look at it as, okay, there's this board map, and you're going to do the necessary steps to get off or to get to the end in Candyland, but anxiety land.
Wow.
Right. That's how I've looked at it and how I explain it to kids now, seeing kids. And it just has helped so much because it makes sense.
Wow.
Right?
That's a really good way of looking at
I don't think I
that.
ever told you that.
No, you didn't.
No.
Well, you learn something new every day.
Right? But it's fun because I always wanted, I'm not going to say it on camera because I know someone will take my idea, but like it just makes sense that
It's
you
probably
pick
already
a
out there.
card. You pick a card and you have something to do and it lowers your anxiety. And that's how I looked at it being young. I'm like, okay, if I want to get through this game or get through this panic attack or anxiety attack, I'm doing the necessary steps to get out.
Yeah, and I think that's the key about anxiety. What I've learned through life and through the work is it's the do part.
Right.
Right, you have to do, because being in the constant thought process, it just loops you into never Candyland, and we're gonna
Right.
play Candyland until we can't play Candyland anymore.
I know.
So it's just important to understand the do part, and I think that is really important to know what you're capable of doing. Because everyone's different.
Everyone's different. Everyone has their own version of Candyland. Anxietyland, I should say.
Yes.
But everyone's cards look different. Everyone's pieces look different. Everyone's stops look different. Everyone's like little specific like land, I like to call it, looks different. And how you get there and how you get off looks different. That's the most important part.
Right. I love that.
Analogy.
We're really good at those. The metaphors just hit hard.
I know. And I wish it was only us, but I fear that all therapists.
I know.
We can pretend though.
Yeah, we can.
We have the best analogies and metaphors.
There you go.
Right? Might as well.
Might as well.
But I guess let's take it back to
way back. My land or your land?
Do you want to go or
no?
Or you want me to go?
You got it.
Okay. So, as I said already, I think the first time I struggled with anxiety was around middle school. And I always thought I was a very anxious person when I started middle school and then up, because I always thought something was wrong with me medically. Like I was like, okay, what the hell is this? And like, what is wrong with me? So I thought I had everything every other day. I swear to God.
Wow.
I really thought. And my mom, not to be negative about it, but I kind of think my mom might have thought I had some things too, because she wasn't very sure at that time, at that moment, that I was struggling with anxiety, you know?
Yeah.
So it was hard for other people around me to help because they also didn't know.
Right. Right. And I think that's the whole key of anxiety is not knowing.
Right.
Right? It's the fear.
And then that brings
the grave
more anxiety.
Correct. Right.
So
how you define it or how you own it, right? Like saying that's my anxiety.
Yeah. Or
you're calling it out,
right?
Like you're calling out this is what that anxiety looks like. This is what it looks like for me, not just saying it's mine, I'm never taking it away.
Right.
Like this is my cup. Sarah, no, you can't have it.
Right.
Like,
but you can have my anxiety. No.
I don't want it.
No, literally.
No,
So I guess,
you.
Okay, so fast forward to high school. I went to private school since I was in preschool to 8th grade, like private Catholic school. And then I had a very drastic change and shift in schooling when I went to high school. So I started public school. And I really was so excited, but it was awful. I probably would have, not that Catholic high schools are any better, but I don't know. I try not to think about if I were to redo it, how would I do it? Because I spiral and then boom, crashing out.
Hello, anxiety.
Hello, crash out.
You're right. So, like, that's the thing. It's about being reflective,
Yeah.
right? And not allowing yourself to go into the spiral.
Yeah.
But see, like, that's what's so great about you and about a lot of people that struggle with anxiety. It's how quick you can get to that.
Right.
How can I understand that I might spiral? And it's
Right, and
acknowledging. It's acknowledging.
And I have not been like that for my whole life. Like, okay, so high school. I didn't have much anxiety about starting a new school because I was super excited, but I guess starting sophomore year, I had my first ever boyfriend, so that comes with new anxiety. And I should preface that now is when my mom started picking up on, like, okay, this might be anxiety, because I started doing my own research. And I was like, not that was self-diagnosing, but I would love watching YouTube videos about anxiety. And I was like, okay, that's exactly how I feel. Like, I feel
You can
like,
identify.
right. I feel like I'm being weighed down. I feel like I can't breathe. I'm not having a heart attack. It's just maybe this thing called anxiety. So we're in high school. Now we're going to fast forward to junior or senior year. I started seeing my first therapist. Actually, no. Sophomore year, I see my first therapist at my pediatrician office, and I fucking hated it. It was literally horrible. I thought I was going to write off all therapists, but I didn't.
Now you're going to be one.
What?
Now you're going to be one.
I know. I know.
Like, that is a huge cycle.
I know. Like a whirlwind.
Right.
Of
unknowns, right? You go from this experience of
sucked.
I'm never doing it, and now I'm gonna be one,
and now I'm doing it for everyone.
I'm doing it for other,
right,
yeah,
right. So
you do it for different reasons.
And let me just explain. Every therapist has their thing, and this therapist, this was her thing. So now that I'm in it, I'm not gonna knock what she wanted to do, but as a child.
Teenager.
It wasn't it. No, see, like, I feel like I was definitely a child. Maybe I started earlier. I don't know the timeline, people, but she had me, like, doing exposure therapy to pictures online of, like, stuff I hated. And I'm like, this isn't, like, I remember vividly. This is what I remember vividly. I go into the office, and it's probably, like, third session, and she's asking me what my biggest fear is. And if you know me, you know that my biggest fear is spiders. So she was like, okay, we're going to start slowly exposing you to spiders. And I was like, fuck no, lady. Like, I came to therapy for the anxiety. I don't care to get friendly with spiders. That can be my biggest fear forever. I don't care. That's not why I'm here. So I'm like, belittle me. I'm like, okay, whatever. So she pulls up a picture of a spider on her laptop, and I'm sitting there. She's like, what are you feeling? I'm like, to be honest, I'm fucking annoyed, but I'm not going to say that. So I'm like, I'm feeling uncomfortable. That lovely word we all love to hear as a therapist. But so the session goes on, and I'm not getting anything from this. And she's like, okay, your homework is to draw spiders on your free time. And
in your free time.
Right. To, like, expose yourself to, like, it's just a bug. I'm like, okay, fuck this. Tell my mom, never go back. And then my pediatrician gives me recommendations, or referrals, I should say, to people outside of the office. And then I find the best therapist I ever had. Definitely is the person that influenced me to do the career that I am in. And she hates when I say that, like, it's all because of her that my anxiety it's not gone, but it's controlled. But it really is. Like, when you find that person that allows you to be you and allows you to feel all the things, and then also gives you tools to kind of help and manage, and you actually want to do them,
That's the key.
it's like boom.
Well, I think that's the thing. If you want to play anxiety land all the
Right.
time, there's no stopping you.
Right.
But if you don't want to play that anymore and that game is just not it for you, you have the choice
Right.
every day,
Right.
right? Like, it's not easy to manage anything in this world. It really isn't. There's all uncertainties, right? I don't know the next thing you're going to say to me. That's anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
For people that take tests, that's anxiety. The thing that you feel in your gut, that's anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But that's good anxiety because that means you give a fuck about how you perform,
Exactly.
right? So, like, the social piece, all of those things that we all
Yeah.
feel when we're in those situations that bring on anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
if we utilize it as, I just care about the outcome of the
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
it's a totally different perspective.
Right. And it's a great perspective, and I feel like it's a hard perspective too, because it's a hard realization that you can shift perspective
Right.
for
Your
your
own.
own well-being.
Right. I'll say own that perspective.
Right.
Okay, I'm in this land. Yes, you are. Now, do you want to stay there? Or do we want to not be there? Right? Do
No.
we want to build a ship and get across to the other land?
And I guess I also want to say that it's super important to know that it's not a straight, like, okay, I'm getting on the ship and I'm going and I'm never
Yeah.
moving backwards.
It is
like,
literally.
you're going to have, like, skip a turn, or you have to stay in, like, I don't know. There's so many roadblocks,
Yeah.
and it's fine. I felt like when I was in my journey, I would get so happy when I was like 5 steps ahead, and then I would be like one day 2 steps back, and I'm like, okay, I was doing so good, like, why? And it's hard to realize that it's not linear,
Yeah.
and it's a journey, and it's your journey, and it's going to be how you make of it.
And I think you just brought up another key word about anxiety and really about every experience we have in our lives is the why.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always have to know why. Because a lot of anxiety is stemmed from feeling like you need to be in control all the damn time. That's your middle name. It should be.
Oh, God.
It also should be mine.
No, me, though, for sure. Definitely. I'm like,
Yeah,
got it by the balls.
got it.
Control.
Right.
No, it's fine.
Right.
It's fine. Yeah, I mean, everything is a process, I feel like, in life. And we could probably make this episode like 5 hours long, because it just gets
It gets deep.
It's like there's the road of anxiety, and then there's the little road, like, stops, or what are they called when the tractor trailers? Rest stops.
Rest stops,
Like,
yeah.
a bunch coming off
Yeah.
the road.
And then you just have life in there already too.
Yeah.
Right?
just-
Okay, here's this that happened. Here's this
yeah.
that happened.
And then
My
those
everyday
are the
stuff.
normal anxiety triggers. Like,
Yeah.
there's normal, no, I shouldn't say normal. I hate that word.
Typical.
Because there's not normal.
Typical.
But yeah, there's your everyday anxieties
Mhm.
or typical anxieties. There's so much.
It's like a physical response
Yeah.
that you get from
Yeah.
anxiety if it gets so loud.
Yeah. And that's too much. I feel like that's what I'm saying.
Correct.
Like, I don't ever want to tell people that you shouldn't feel the way you do about a situation. It's what comes after that. And like, if you read the bio for this episode, it's specifically in there, like, the crash out that comes after anxiety.
Yeah.
Because anxiety is its own. And then after that, I remember I used to get horrible migraines after an anxiety attack, because it took so much out of me, energy and time, that I felt like I ran a marathon. I'm not even joking.
Wow.
Like I felt
Yeah,
horrible.
mental exhaustion.
I felt like I could take a 5-hour nap.
Wow.
Right?
Again, learn something new about you every day,
Yeah.
which
I
is
don't know
beautiful.
how you didn't know that.
I don't know.
Weird.
I know. But, I mean, going to, this could be an episode and or a podcast by itself. We could talk about anxiety and all of the stems that come with it and the crashing out. I mean, everybody crashes out completely different, right? So anxiety in of itself is super complex. Super complex. But when you break it down into, okay, this is the anxiety that I am experiencing. And if I just think about it, that's going to spiral into, well, I can't control it. Well, yes, you can't, because thinking about it isn't going to do anything, right? Thinking about it is just going to keep you in that land. But when you start doing things, okay, mental exhaustion, like your example, mental exhaustion, that's a real thing. Where then at nighttime, right, that's when I get the anxiety that I feel is at nighttime, where, okay, I had everything going all day. Here's work, here's the kids, here's my husband, here's everything, right? And then at night, it's like the to-do list just keep on going in my head. What do I have to do tomorrow? What do I need to do? Right? So it's anticipatory anxiety that now I experience probably on a daily.
Right.
Which is how you manage it, right? Before I had no idea how to manage that and what that even would look like for me, because forever my mantra was, I don't have enough time to do that. There's not enough time in the day where I could do that. There's only 24 hours in the day. And I don't have time for that. I'm like, no, you do. You absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Because, again, if you want to get off that land, what are you willing to do?
And that's another shift in perspective. And I always say this to a lot of people, that it's all about your perspective on things. And when you shift that, did I really just say that there's only 24 hours in a day and I don't have 20 minutes
right,
to shift my perspective on, like,
or try.
Right.
It's even just getting to the point of trying.
But even 5 minutes, like, you always have time. And I hate to be super direct, but that's an excuse. I don't apologize. I mean, I don't want to be like, get your ass up and do it, but like, your ass up and do it. Seriously, it's an excuse, and I was there before. Like, I definitely made excuses.
Absolutely.
Everyone has made excuses, but again, it's all about finding that specific niche of what you like to do for your anxiety. There's so many different techniques, which we'll get into, but once you find something that you see is actually benefiting you and helping, that's when you're like, okay,
now I can do more.
Yeah.
And it's starting with one thing, right? No matter what it is, right? No matter what it is, you can be in any type of atmosphere or, I guess, avenue of anxiety and or mental health. It's really just starting with the one. What am I willing to do? What's the first step I'm going to take? And in my opinion, the first one is admitting that you need to do something different because the cycle that you're in isn't working.
Right. And I also want to say that for a lot of people,
that's the hardest step.
I think the first step can be realizing that, like, okay, maybe I can't manage this myself. Maybe I need to go to therapy. And I feel like that is the hardest step.
I mean,
because realizing that sometimes not everything is in just our control and can't be just, not saying that everyone needs to go to therapy for anxiety, but getting there and realizing that for me it was the physical stuff. Like, I can't feel like this every single day.
Yeah, you get
and
to
I
that.
need someone else's perspective to help me shift mine.
Right. And And two, it's when you start feeling the symptoms outside of
Yeah.
the anxiousness is typically what brings you to doing other things.
Right.
Right? So like the perspective shifting probably doesn't come before you start feeling all the ailments like inside of
Yeah.
yourself, or
Yeah.
you know, things change in relationships, or like whatever it is, like externally things start changing because internally we're not listening to our body.
I agree, and I look at it as it starts super small. Like one day you think like, okay, I'm kind of having trouble breathing, but it's fine. Like I drink some water and it's fine. And then the next day it could be simple as like a short, small panic attack, and you're like, okay, maybe I drank too much caffeine.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. And then it just keeps building and building until it's right in your face, telling you like you need to do something about it.
This isn't it for me.
Right. Like that was definitely my personal thing. I was not dealing with it anymore. I was missing school. Like I missed a good chunk of my senior year because I was just, and I guess personally to me, a lot of it, and this is another hard realization, which I'm just realizing it now, a lot of it was self-induced anxiety. Like for me, now realizing, and not like on purpose being like, oh, I'm gonna do this because I know it'll give me anxiety.
Yeah.
It's growing up. Like you're in certain situations that obviously you know aren't good for you, but if you're not in that situation, you're never gonna know that you don't like it or don't want to be in it.
Exactly.
You know? So that's what I mean by
It's-
self-inducing.
I mean, isn't it easy to be comfy? Even if it's not good for you.
right.
Is it easy to, okay, we're on an island and we're in anxiety. I'll
Right.
just stay there because that's where it's comfort, right?
Right.
If I don't have this feeling of anxiety, what is my life going to be like? Right? That's anxiety question in itself.
I know.
Right? And answering that for yourself, what would it be like? And then identifying, what do I want my life to
like,
look
oh,
like?
I don't want to look at.
Right,
Like,
you don't want to
that's-
look
right,
like, oh, that's scary. Like, well, it might be good.
good scary. Like scary new.
Right, like
Kind of
scary.
like moving to like
Yeah.
a new place. Like you're like, okay, this is really scary, but I know this is really good for me.
Exactly. It's like trying something over. Okay, I'll go back to, you know, I'll be a little bit therapist-y again with you. It's like the
With
first time
them,
like-
not me.
True. So going back to if anxiety was going to run your world the first time you went to a therapist
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't go well for you, you're like, what if the next one? What
It's
if I
like the
never
same-
find
right.
anybody? It's not going to work. It's like, what you have to do to be able to judge
Mm-hmm.
whether it's going to happen again. And it proved you wrong,
I
right? You
agree.
proved yourself wrong. You proved yourself that thought process was wrong, right? The feelings were correct. They were valid, but they were actually false.
Right. Right.
Meaning correct as in feelings are always valid. They're valid, they're real.
Oh, of
But they
course.
can
but
trick
the
you until the cows
reaction-
come home.
The reaction that comes along with it sometimes
Yes.
isn't valid.
Yes,
That's
it
what's
is
tricky.
false.
Right.
It is false. And
Right.
I think that's the realization that is important for everybody to try to work on. Because
And
that's
a
a
harsh
lifelong thing.
one.
That's lifelong.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm old. And I
She's not old.
I
Yes.
I feel old. I'm still learning it every day. Like, how can I shift this? Can I shift it? Am I willing to shift it?
That one. Love that one because there's so many times that like are you actually willing to shift that mindset or that perspective? Are you ready to shift the mindset or perspective?
Mm-hmm. Is it painful enough?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
Is it
Okay.
painful enough for you to not do it anymore?
Which and I sometimes look back and I'm like, I want to hug my younger self because nobody helped me say like, okay, it gets better, or you might have found your first therapist not very helpful, but I made the choice and the decision not to give up.
Mhm.
Nobody made that choice for
Right.
me, and I was little,
Mhm.
little, but I was
Mhm.
young.
Right.
That I made that choice and decision, and sometimes adults can't even. They're like, okay, that was bad. I'm never doing it again.
Right.
So
And that's okay for them.
right, that is.
Maybe they'll come back.
Right.
Right?
And that's what I mean about are you willing? Like, that's why I like
Yeah.
that so much, because it's usually not about the therapist. It's usually about, like, in my opinion and in my experience, it would be the me not willing to do the work.
Like why they're coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And
Are
why
we
they're
doing
not
it?
coming back.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times it's the question of, what we hear is,
Mm-hmm.
why are you here today? What are you looking to work on? And it's like, well, I just want, my so and so to feel happy. It's like, well, that one's not in your control. Right? So
And that's a harsh realization too, is realizing that this is your journey.
Yeah.
Nobody else's, and
Right.
you also can't force someone to start theirs.
Exactly. Like, it's just hard. It's hard. It's very complex.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever way, anxiety flows through you, it's almost like allowing it, right? It's flowing through you. It's part of the journey of every day, because we wake up every day and we don't know exactly what's happening other than the to-do list or other than what you already have on your agenda for the day.
Right.
So we all live in it. We all live in it. It's how you respond to it. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do about it? Right? And a lot of times now I see, and even myself sometimes, like the comparison, right? I think that's so prevalent now, of the comparing, right? When we were even talking about the podcast, like, oh, do we do it?
Right.
Is this gonna happen?
And I feel like the comparing has so much to do with social media, which is so prevalent now too.
Yeah.
Because there would be no podcasts and there would be no comparing
Yeah.
podcasts if it wasn't for
Mhm.
the platforms that allow
Yeah.
the podcasts,
Right. Yeah.
So I guess those two go hand in hand, just like everything else.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
I love it.
So when did you start therapy? Do you want to talk about that or
It's
no?
loaded. I should have started therapy a lot earlier. I didn't
I
start.
agree with me too. I wanted to start earlier, but again, like when you have that, nobody understands it and
Yeah.
nobody thinks it's quote unquote real. It's hard as a child. But
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about the aspects that I grew up in and like how I handled probably the anxiety that was coming up was very much through sports. Right? When you talk about, the mental exhaustion, I mean, I couldn't think when I was in high school or probably in college, because I was so just enmeshed in sports. That was my identity. And when I started therapy was when all of that came crumbling down.
Oh, your knee?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And then I stopped because it just wasn't really for me either. Because I guess it wasn't not for me. I wasn't ready. That is for dang sure. Because my way or the highway, that's how I grew up.
Literally. Same.
Like, sorry, why can't I go out? Because I said so. Oh, okay, good answer. Good.
I love that because same. Like, you don't want to have a conversation.
Can we please talk about it?
You don't want to talk about your
so
feelings.
you don't trust me?
So it's just a no. No explanation.
Got it. Perfect. I got all the information on how I can make this different the next time.
Right. It'll just continue to
We'll
be a
just-
no. So then I'll just
okay.
avoid and avoid and avoid.
Right. So I will now continue because we don't bark at the sports. I'll just continue to do that because that's where they felt proud of me. So
Ugh.
I was like,
Can we
okay,
make a whole
I'll just be
episode
there.
of childhood trauma, please?
Oh, Lord. Let's not do that. No, I'm just kidding. We can. We totally
We don't
can.
need to share our baggage, but like just
It's everybody has baggage, right? Again, therapist also has therapists. It's a
Literally.
thing.
literally
A thing.
it is
But
the thing.
so I went when all of that came crumbling down and through even now, which has been so helpful to just again learn the perspective of that other person of what I'm telling them. Right? And even too going to therapy is tough even for a therapist. Even for me. So you don't know what you're really willing to say.
Well, and
'Cause-
I think that's why it's so hard for me to figure out where I want or what I want, because after you go to school
yeah.
for it, and after you have your clients, and after you have your way of doing things, it's just like you know what you don't want. And
Yeah.
that's like, you know what you don't want for your clients, and you know what you don't want for you as a therapist. So finding someone that, I don't want to say does things the same as you, but similar in
Mhm.
perspective
This is definitely
is
helpful.
so difficult, especially in the therapy world we're in now.
For sure. For sure. But yeah. I don't know.
Scene. No.
Here we are.
Yeah. Okay, so lastly, what I think we should talk about is kind of what helps us, and seeing if like it would help them.
Them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know what helps me,
What?
and it's going to be very non-traditional and very explicit.
Weird.
But I literally don't care, so maybe you should go first.
Nope, you're it.
You want me to go first?
You're it.
Okay.
Tag.
First one is definitely my journaling or reading of some sort, like either one of those. Those are traditional methods, but they definitely help because I think I've said this in the previous episode, I'm a visual thinker.
Mhm.
So I need it to be on paper. And I also have some sort of like, I don't know if this is my control issue, but I have some sort of love and desire to look back on like
Ah.
what was bothering me and
Yeah.
how I've grown from it then
Right.
or now. And then I guess like my second one, we all know, would be self-care.
Yeah.
I love
That's your-
self-care. Like I
It's
love
her
a bath.
love.
I love a face mask. I love all of that. Any self-care method. I
Mhm.
am in for it. My nails done, pedicures, tanning, even though it's bad for you. All of the things. All of the things.
All the bad things.
And then maybe shouldn't do my bad one. We'll just refrain. We'll refrain from that. But yeah, all of the good stuff. I don't have, honestly, surprising enough, I don't have many unhealthy coping mechanisms. Like I'm not really a drinker. I'm not a
Mhm.
smoker.
Yeah.
I don't have many things. I am an avoidant person though. Like I think that's my only,
Yeah.
if we're being real,
Yeah.
that's one of my only unhealthy traits
Yeah.
is I'm very avoidant.
I like to leave parts out.
Mm.
That's my favorite thing. Just leave a gap.
Yeah, just leave a gap.
Right?
My
like-
story's different from yours.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my negative coping skill for sure.
Cranky doodle
Right.
over here.
You.
I think that's how you can know if I'm anxious now. Being
What?
an adult and being a therapist is if I am a fucking cranky brat, something's not right in here. like
True.
something's not right.
True.
You know, because I feel like I'm fairly like outgoing and jumpy and like bubbly.
Yeah.
So if I'm not, which I do have a little bit of an like I don't want to say attitude, but
Assertiveness.
yeah, assertiveness. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm super cranky and like you just know something's off, that's my key indicator of anxiety. Boom.
True.
So,
all right, mine.
I want like 2 or 3 of what helps you, and then how we can know if you're anxious. Like if there's any signs. Like I also like to play with my hair when I'm anxious or uncomfortable. I'm like,
yeah, true.
Twirl away.
Yeah, I do that. Sometimes I tap my foot. If I shake my foot all the time, that's definitely a negative thing. If I'm really quiet, I am definitely not a really quiet person.
No, you're not.
Especially when I'm having fun. I will just be like a 10-year-old all over again.
Right.
My positives, I guess what works well for me is like honestly quality time. That helps me a lot. Yeah, like quality time, like things that I really want to do. Like I could be out shopping, but it's like quality time. Like it's not just.
Oh, I like that one. Shopping's a good one. That's
probably
my unhealthy one.
Yeah, that's also
retail
my
therapy.
Yes, absolutely.
We're in for that.
Other things. Sorry, Brian. Sorry.
I have no one to apologize, which is fucking amazing. So, besides myself,
I can apologize to the cows come home. And let's see, other ways that I cope with the anxiousness. Like, I think my lists definitely help the anxiousness, knowing what I need to do, right? Because those are the things that I can control. And honestly, controlling the intake of how much coffee I'm.
Yeah, I like that one.
Like
we have very different anxieties now. Like we have different perspectives on and what brings us anxiety.
Yeah,
which is great because we also have different ways of coping and helping. So we share those with each other, I think. Yeah. That's another nice thing.
Almost like pushes you to see like what else works.
Right.
Like, hey, does this work?
Right.
No, I think
I agree.
It definitely has allowed, the juices to be flowing per se.
Yeah.
So like what else can I do instead of just, maybe reading or doing some work to like know that I have things like checked off my list is like so satisfying to me.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah.
A check mark on my list is like mind-blowing for me. I think because we're in 2 separate worlds, really.
I agree. Besides our profession, we definitely are in 2 different worlds.
2 separate worlds.
And points in life.
For sure. Right? Like, I think quality time, because I work so much, I really want to hang out with my kids and my husband. And it's my favorite thing to see them smile is like my favorite thing in the world. Like, it really is. It brings me joy so much that then allows the anxiousness to come through and be like, okay, the things that I'm doing is worth it.
Right.
So I think that's important for me.
I think I love alone time because I have no one to answer to right now. Yeah. So I only have to answer to myself, and knowing that I can be one with myself and present, that makes me, that's quality time to me.
Right. And I think even in the perspective of the people that are more in my lane of where they are in life, I think there just are so many different aspects that we don't get that alone time, right? We don't get that, we can do everything by ourselves without any permission, no matter what, right? And that brings a whole nother thing, which is probably going to be another episode too. So that's always fun. But that was fun. Tell me about anxiety. We talk about all the things.
Okay, well, I guess that concludes our episode for this week. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Today's affirmation is, I will give myself room
to make mistakes and grow.